We've got an absolute cracker of a year coming up with international rugby tests this year across the world. All the major rugby playing nations are going to be involved, and there's going to be some great showdowns as a follow-up to last year's Rugby World Cup. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Springboks schedule so far for 2024. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you've settled into the new year well. We've got plenty of amazing rugby coming up this year. I'm going to be following all of it right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. So if it's not too much trouble, why don't you hit the subscribe button and follow along the journey. We're going to have some great things to talk about, and no more so than in this video when I'm talking about the Springboks schedule for 2024. Of what we know of it so far, there's still a few games to be confirmed at the time of me making this video, but I'm sure they will be confirmed pretty shortly. Now, it's going to be a fantastic year for the Springboks, but it's also going to be a fantastic year for their opponents, because they're going to be able to test themselves against the world champions, and that's going to be something that a lot of the teams, or all of the teams that are playing the Springboks this year, are going to get very, very excited about. So expect the players and the coaching teams from the opposition of the Springboks to really be getting a lot of motivation behind their opportunity to come up against the world champions in 2024. Now, like with all of my videos, I love your comments. I read them all, so don't be shy in putting down your thoughts about the content that I talk about in this video, in particular if you're from South Africa. And by the way, I hope you're enjoying your summer holidays down there. Plenty of braais going on and having a wonderful time in that wonderful country. Now, it's not only going to be a great opportunity for the Springboks this year to cement themselves as the world champions, but it's also going to be a great opportunity for their opponents this year as they come up against the Springboks, whether they're playing South Africa in South Africa or whether they're going to be playing them in their home nation, or maybe even on neutral ground if that comes into effect this year. It's going to be a great opportunity for those coaches and those players in the opposition teams to really motivate themselves and see how well they can do against the 2024 edition of the Springboks rugby team. So on July the 6th, the campaign for the Springbok gets underway in Pretoria, and they'll be playing Ireland in the first of two games that will happen in South Africa this year. And boy, what a mouth-watering edition that's going to be for the Springboks this year in South Africa. Expect the Irish come with plenty of intent to these two games in South Africa after being beaten by the All Blacks in the quarterfinal of the Rugby World Cup last year. They'll feel as though they've got unfinished business, and they want to take it to South Africa as best they can in Pretoria in that first game. 1 week later in Durban, the Springboks will take on Ireland in the second game of that two-match series that's going to be played in South Africa. And depending on what happens in that first game, I'm sure the second is going to be a belter as well. I think this is going to be a very, very close series, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much these players have been tired by their campaigns heading up to this test series. As a number of you have made comments on my most recent videos, the South Africans have been playing a lot of rugby in the last 12 months, and a lot of them might be very, very tired. So what Rassie does with the team in terms of rotating the squad and giving some new players an opportunity, it's going to be very interesting to see how he manages that throughout the Springboks campaign this year. What do you think is going to happen in South Africa for these two games against Ireland? Do you think we're going to see any new blood coming into the Springboks team, or do you think that Rassie is going to go with the best team that he can put on the field from the Rugby World Cup era? Now, at the time of making this video, we've got Mac Hansen just been announced with an injury. It's going to keep him out for quite a while. He's going to miss the Six Nations, so hopefully he'll be set and ready to come back and firing on all cylinders to be able to go to South Africa and take on the Springboks. Kilcoyne is another one for Ireland that's currently injured, and he's going to have to be re-injected into this Irish team at some stage. So it's going to be interesting between now and then to see how many of these players pick up injuries that might hamper their preparation for that series down in South Africa. That's going to be the case for all teams, of course, this year as we go through their international campaigns. And it's going to be another factor that a lot of the coaches and the staff are going to take into consideration when they're thinking of bleeding new players into the squads, as well as making sure that their key personnel get enough rest from both the travel that's required this year, as well as the number of games that are going to be played. So after what's going to be an absolutely amazing series against Ireland in South Africa, then the Springboks are next going to play Portugal. And I'm really looking forward to this game because it's going to be the highlight of this Portuguese team to be able to play against the world champions. There's yet to be a venue decided on where this game is actually going to be played. So if anybody's got their ear close to the ground and can let me know, throw it down in the comments. But I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Portugal Rugby to actually spread the game and get more news in the press in Portugal, get more young kids playing the game, because when Portugal play the world champions, it's going to be a huge occasion for rugby in Portugal. The Springboks are going to have an opportunity, of course, to be able to mix around their squad a little bit in this game against Portugal. But let's make sure they don't take it too easy, because this Portugal team is no pushover, as we saw at the Rugby World Cup. Do I expect them to compete against the Springboks over the course of 80 minutes? No, probably not. But I think it's going to be an entertaining game, if nothing else. And I'm so pleased to see this game on the international calendar this year on July the 20th for Portugal to have an opportunity to play against the Springboks. That's what a lot of us were asking throughout the Rugby World Cup, was that these smaller playing nations who are really growing their game of rugby, they just need opportunities, don't they, against the top teams. And we're seeing it with the All Blacks playing against Fiji this year, perhaps twice, which is going to be a great thing for Fiji rugby as well. We're seeing it with Portugal being able to have the opportunity to come up against the Springboks. So July 20, circle that date in the calendar. It's going to be a historic event for Portugal rugby, and it's going to be a great clash. And as I said, there hasn't been a venue decided yet for this particular game. Now, after that game against Portugal, the Springboks are going to be hitting the road and heading off over to Australia for their Rugby Championship games. And it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? I think all of us in the rugby world are waiting to see what happens with the Wallabies this year. Are they going to be able to bounce back? Are they going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Rugby Championship? And we don't even know who their coach is going to be yet. So hopefully when that news is announced, they can get down to some serious work. So the Springboks will be going to Australia's World Champions, expecting to knock over Australia a couple of times there in the Rugby Championship and see whether they can start to dominate that competition this year. But all eyes are going to be on Loftus Veerveld in Johannesburg on August the 31st when the All Blacks come to town to take on the World Champions. And boy, what a mouth-watering game that's going to be. A revenge of the Rugby World Cup final is going to be all in the All Blacks' eyes. And Razor Robertson, the new coach of the All Blacks, is going to try and get one over Rassie to start off his career of coaching against the Springboks. It's going to be a fascinating game that weekend in Loftus Veerveld. And then the week later we go to DHL Stadium in Cape Town for the second match between the All Blacks and South Africa on this particular tour of South Africa for the All Blacks. And it's going to be interesting to see at this stage whether we see any tiredness or fatigue in the All Black camp from the amount of games and travel they've done up until that stage of the tournament. But I can tell you what, the All Blacks will be putting everything into those two games in South Africa and trying to come away with at least one win out of those two games. Let me know what you think is going to happen in those two games in South Africa. Do you think one of those venues favours the All Blacks more than another? Or do you think they're going to be both tight games for the Springboks to come out on top? I'd love to read your comments on that one. Cape Town, and then on the 25th of September, the Springboks will play Argentina in Nelspruit, and that's going to be also a very good game. It's going to be interesting to see what Felipe Countaponi is going to be able to do with this Argentinian Puma team. He's taking over from Michael Checker. They're going to be travelling to South Africa, taking on the world champions. Can we expect an upset in that particular game, or do we think the Springboks are going to be comfortable winners over the Pumas back in South Africa? So two games against Argentina in the Rugby Championship, and we don't know where the second game is going to be played at this stage. It's probably going to be played in Argentina, but that is yet to be confirmed. So the Springboks are going to have to get on the road and do a bit of travelling after that first game against Argentina. And then in November we're going to see the Springboks travelling to the UK and Europe to play their end of the year calendar year games and test matches against the home unions. Currently they've got England booked in for November the 16th or 17th at Twickenham. That's going to of course be a huge game. The All Blacks are going to be playing England there as well, so the English fans, the English players, the English coaching team are going to be up for it to try and knock off the All Blacks and the Springboks both at Twickenham at the end of the year. And then we're probably going to see the Springboks go to France and play France, and probably a game against Wales or Scotland as well. Those games have not been confirmed yet. I'm just purely speculating on those. And I've actually written to SA Rugby in the last couple of days asking when are they going to be able to confirm the end of year tour for the Springboks to the UK and Europe. So as soon as I have word on that, or from any of you, then we'll be able to make an announcement of it. So this year there's going to be plenty of endeavour for the Springboks to really show their world champion status. They're going to come up against the best rugby playing teams in the world, and they've got that amazing game booked in against Portugal as well, which I'm looking forward to just as much as all of the others this year. Now, when I put out my video about the All Blacks schedule for this year, there was some interesting comments and predictions on how many games you felt the All Blacks are going to be able to win this year on a very arduous tour around the world. How do you think the Springboks are going to be able to go? Do you think they're going to be able to have a more settled schedule and therefore they're going to be able to win more games? Or do you think this is a good chance for Rassie to blow all that out of the water, try some new players and see his development of the squad take place across the year 2024? That might be something for us to really watch and look at this year, because I think it's a great opportunity for some teams to say, look, we don't mind having the odd loss here and there, as long as we're giving some of these young guys the opportunity to play against some of the best rugby playing nations in the world. Remember, this year, the start of the build-up for Rugby 2027 Rugby World Cup starts, and the coaches and the teams and the playing squads will be all looking at the long term here. So we might see some unpredictable selections this year as we go through the international test season. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that's the way it's going to unplay? Or do you think that the coaches are going to be focusing on keeping their win-loss record in the positive? No matter which way it goes, we're going to have some super exciting international rugby this year in the men's 15 group. I can't wait for Ireland to get to South Africa and start that series against South Africa at home. I just think Ireland are going to bring everything they've got to kick off the year of their international rugby season. So let me know in the comments how you think everything's going to pan out this year for the Springboks. Really interested to see what your thoughts are. Look, I want to thank you all very much for watching my video, making comments. You know what it's like on YouTube. If you hit that subscribe button, it does me the world of good, as well as that growing our international community of rugby fans. Liking the video helps as well, and making some comments goes a long way. So don't forget to do either one of those or all of those if you possibly can, and I'll thank you in advance. Okay, well that's it for this particular video. I'm going to be back again soon talking about rugby in another video. Until then, stay safe everyone, stay well. It's time to say adios from Mexico, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.